is real. Ooh-wee. Yeah. Oh, Lord. That's church. Listen here. Jesus is real. Jesus is real. God is real. Jesus is real. Ask me how I know. For I can feel. Ooh, give me my soul. Let the whole world know this thing. God is real. Every time I think about Him, I start to get happy all over again. God is real.
Ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie. It's your boy Retro. Let you know that registration for Mission 448 is open. You can register today and ride the four corners of your state or multiple states. Who's going to be the first to collect the four corners of each of the lower 48 states? Hashtag Who's Got Next. Register today and ride the four corners of your state. Yo, what's up, everybody, including Lottie Dottie? It's your boy Retro with you on today. And I've got a public service announcement for you. Just because you do something that you see an OG do doesn't make you an OG. And just because you get on your motorcycle and you pound from here to there doesn't make you a ground pounder either. You'll never be what you ain't. But hey, like they say in the Army, be all you can be. Gotta find the Retro Philosophy Show. Let's get ready to go live. Can't miss an episode.
You already know what it is. It's your homegirl Lottie Dottie. I'm in the building hanging out with Retro, and he ain't never lying.
Everybody say,
Yo, what's up, everybody, including Lottie Dottie? It's your boy Retro with you on today. This is the day that, let's get that in here a little bit. There we go. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. How is everybody doing on this here morning? It feels like a Friday, but yet still it feels like it could be a Wednesday too. It's just, oh gosh, we're not even going to talk about my morning. We're not going to talk about that, but we do got some things we want to talk about. Once you come on in, just say what's up in the comment section. You know how we like to do it here on the Retro Philosophy Show. Show your boys some love. If you don't want to show me any love, then show Lottie Dottie some love. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? You already know
what it is. It's your homegirl Lottie Dottie. I'm in the building hanging out with Retro, and he ain't never lying.
So I've got a question, and I'm hoping that some of you guys can help me out. Check this out, man. You should always, forever be a student. Always, trying to learn. And I was getting ready to make a post this morning, and I said, let's just go live and just talk about it a little bit, because sometimes things can be lost in translation, as they would say, misconstrued, perceived the wrong way, because you can write something and not get the full context of it over, if you will. So when someone, that's why sometimes it's good to talk to people face to face, because sometimes people can say something with their lips but say another thing with their expressions. Jimmy Miller is in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Let's show some love for Jimmy Miller joining us on this morning. God bless you, sir. Hope all is well with you and yours on today. Let's do this. Bada boom, bada bang. Okay, that's a little bit better. So it's simply this. The question was, when you hear the word OG, what comes to mind? Who comes to mind? Who's the first individual that comes to your mind? And for some of you guys that are watching, you are probably tuning in because of my presence or my visiting or my whatever you want to call it on the motorcycle set side of things or whatever. But then I also have a lot of people who tune in and follow me for my church activities, so on and so forth. Some maybe just for a word of inspiration. I don't know how you got to know me. As a matter of fact, if you're watching right now, share with me how you got to know me. How is it that we became acquaintances, and why is it that you tune in? What is it that you're looking for when you tune into the Retro Philosophy Show? I believe this is the relevant question. This is a very important question, because sometimes we are setting out to do something, but sometimes that's not what the people are looking for. I have a saying as it relates to outreach, and it's simply, I don't like the word outreach, because that's exactly what we do a lot of times. We outreach the people. We're trying to feed them when they want clothes. We're trying to clothe them when they want, food. And so a lot of times we have a great idea of what outreach is. And it is great. But for the particular people that you're trying to reach, sometimes you might not be as effective as you believe. So sometimes you got to just sit down and have a conversation. And so anyway, when you hear the word OG, whether you are on the motorcycle scene, set, or whatever crowd, church, business, whatever your sphere of influence or your circle or your realm or your place in life, when you hear the word OG, what comes to mind and who comes to mind? The reason why I ask what and who is because sometimes different people have a different definition of what the word OG is or what it should mean. I have several definitions of the term that I want to talk about on today, and I don't plan on being too long. They say you don't have to be long to be strong, and it don't take all day to do nothing. So if you're an OG, holla at me in the comment section. And is OG a term that one themselves picks up and puts on themselves? Or is it a term that is placed on them by default? Is it a term that is placed on them out of reverence from those who they influence? Can you be an OG and not influence anybody? I'm asking these questions because I want to learn something. Okay. My father used to tell me that the dumbest question is a question not asked. And, you look real foolish running around talking about something that you don't know a whole lot about, because you can just really, So, you've got to be very inquisitive and you've got to ask questions. However, there are some people who do not appreciate, do not welcome, do not like questions. Tamara, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Let's make some noise for Tamara Crowder in the building, watching with us on today. To show love and service is why I come on. Well, praise God. Thank you very much, Sister Tamara. Lovely young lady. We had the pleasure of meeting her many years ago. It's amazing how time has flown, and she's always been solid. Every time I see you, Tamara, you are the same. You always got that same smile and that same good energy. So whenever you come on the Retro Philosophy Show, it's felt. So thank you very much for tuning in. And we will do the best that we can as you continue to lift us in prayer to show love and service. So that way your tuning in is not in vain. Natalie James, ladies and gentlemen, let's make some noise for this entrepreneur, singing, dancing, talented young lady who is watching with us on this morning. Good morning to you, young lady, and thank you as well for tuning into the Retro Philosophy Show. Jimmy Miller, good question. I met you in Arkansas at the Ride to Eat. I rarely get to see a live show. I watch the repeats when I'm driving just because I'm working. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Your spin of motorcycling and God. OG is earned and comes with age. All right. I like that. Thank you very much. And it was indeed a pleasure meeting you, Jimmy, at the RTE. And I take it we'll see you next year in Florida. Yeah. Let's make some noise for Jimmy Miller. And just to dig in a little bit, my spin on motorcycling and God. I just really don't know any other way to do it. I try to stay true to who I am and who I am in God. And then that way there's no pretense. There's no facade. There's no, I encourage people, just be you. Everybody might not like it, but I promise you there are some that will appreciate you just being you. Okay. Blessings overflow to you as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, Florida's going to be nice, man. We've got we're actually, I don't know, Jimmy, if you're familiar with the Mission 448 is something that we do. And I've already done the Four Corners of Florida, but we're going to be doing it again for the RTE next year. We've already talked to several people who are interested in joining us. So we're going to repeat the Four Corners of Florida on our way to the RTE. I will be coming down 95, coming into Jacksonville, which is the first corner of the Florida Four Corners, Mission 448 style. We will proceed on down to Miami, which is the second corner. After hitting Miami, we're going to continue because some of the team wants to go down to mile marker 0. So we'll go on down to Key West, grab that photograph and probably some rest and some food. And then we'll turn around and head up to Naples, which is the third. And then on up to Pensacola for the fourth corner, completing the Four Corners of Florida. And then just hop another 30 minutes, I believe it is, if even that, over to Gulf Breeze for the 2026 RTE. So, ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie, if you too are interested in joining us on that great ride, then by all means, let me know, and we will get you the link for the registration for the Four Corners of Florida on our way to the RTE. So let's see if we can jump back into the discussion that we are trying to get into on this morning, which is OGs. And I have, as I said, about 3 or 4 different definitions of the term OG. Okay, we'll get in that we'll get into that in a second. But again, my spin on motorcycling and God is, number one, I must keep God first, because He sees and knows everything, right? And then everything else is secondary. You know what I'm saying? So I guess, in my opinion, in my view, I really don't have a spin on it per se. I just keep it 100. And this is another thing I'll throw out there, because I say this often. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. So if you show people that you care, they'll be a little bit more interested in what you know. Some of you know a lot of stuff, but you just present it in such a bad way, nobody cares what you know. Let me hush and just get on out the way and move on. So again, outreach is something that we should continue to do, but we should change the way we look at it. Because again, sometimes we outreach the people. We need to ask questions. We need to engage, and we need to be relevant. We need to be relevant. And most important, that should be number one. But most important, we want to be engaged and we want to be relevant and all this and that. But we've got to be authentic. You see, you could be a nerd of all nerds. You could be a square of all squares, but your authenticity cannot be challenged. It cannot be questioned, because you're being real to your nerdiness. You're being real to your squareness. You're being real to whatever it is that you are. And I heard somebody say your vibe will attract your tribe. Do you not realize there is a multitude of people? I mean, to tell you, from all walks of life. So why should I try to pretend to be someone or something that I'm not, and miss those who I'm called to? Think about it, folks. I mean, just think about it. My cousin, he told me something years ago. He was one of the most popular people I knew at the time. Back home, everybody knew him, man. The girls, the fellas, everybody, the thugs, the everybody, and he was cool with everybody. And I never forget, my first year of junior high school was his first year of high school. But he came back to the junior high school. I'll never forget it, man. And everybody seen me with him, and it was like, oh, yo, that's your cousin? Yeah, that's my cousin. And so I asked him, I said, yo, cuz, man, how did you get so popular? I was inquiring, true story. And he sits there and he looks at me and he tells me, he says, cuz, you got to be cool with everybody. He said, the nerds, he said, you got to be cool with everybody. I said, oh, okay. Duly noted. And that was my approach from junior high throughout the rest of life. Even if we're different, it's all right to be cool. We can still be cool. I may not go to the same events that you go to, but that's okay. We can still be cool. We can disagree, and we can agree to disagree and still be cool. So many people, they ostracize, criticize, put down, overlook, mishandle, mistreat people because they're different. But I believe it is our differences that creates a strength for us if we learn how to work them. Ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie, make some noise for my good friend, Mr. Maso Young is in the building. No matter how old he gets, he will forever be young. Yeah. Mr. Maso Young is in the building. This brother's so cool, they had to name a town after him. Yeah, Youngstown, Ohio. And so, Maso, how you doing, sir? Let's make some more noise for Maso Young in the building. God is good. Keep pressing forward. You in that truck this morning, Maso? What you doing this morning, man? Cool like that, my hat, brother. Man, listen here. Don't get me started with these hats, man. I as a matter of fact, I'm from now until I run out, I'm gonna wear a different hat every single day. And see, I'm literally looking at a whole stack of hats right now, y'all. I mean, true story, real talk. All different kinds. So from today, Maso, for today, I'm going on a hat spree. I'm going on a hat marathon, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know which hat I'll be wearing tomorrow, you just gotta tune in. I don't even know if I'm going live tomorrow. Tomorrow's Tuesday. I very, very well may. But I guess it's indicative of who I am, because I do wear many hats. One day you'll see me working on the bus. One day you'll see me working on the truck. One day you'll see me working on the bike. One day you'll see me working on the shop. Ain't no telling what I'm going to be doing, And true story, and I'll get back to the topic, guys. Is that okay? This might bless somebody. It might help somebody. I started my first business, I like to say at 12 years old, because I had the paper out, and my favorite day was Friday, of course, because I would go knock on them doors collecting. It's the paper boy. I wanted my $2.50, real story. And so I did that. I had the daily route, then I had the morning paper, then I got the Sunday route. We were trying to get them coins, me and my little brother. And so that was about like 12-ish, I did that. But my first real business venture was I was 17 years old, and I opened up a little bodega, many refer to them as or call them. It was just a little corner store, hotspot variety. What was that? 1279 Worcester Street, I believe it was. Yeah, it was 1279 Worcester Street, and Indian Orchard, Massachusetts. Couldn't tell me nothing. I was what, my last year of high school. And oh man, that shop meant a lot to me, man. And we was doing our thing, man. And so I did that, and I had fun. I learned a lot. After that, it was Miracles Hair Salon. Then it was Heavenly Headquarters Music Store, Tasty's Restaurant, Uppercuts then came after that. I've done several ventures, and I've always been, as some would call, a jack of all trades. And growing up the way I grew up and growing up where I grew up, you almost had to. You almost had to be, a jack of all trades, because when you didn't have the wherewithal, you found a way. Okay, I wouldn't trade it for all the tea in China. I really wouldn't. And it was Miracles Hair Salon when and where it really all started. I think Hotspot Variety was the tip of the iceberg. God was trying to do something and I didn't see it, and so I missed it. Miracles Hair Salon was the second opportunity. By the time I opened Miracles Hair Salons, I had already given my life to the Lord, and I was already, on a better path. And so I was able to get a whole lot more out of that experience. It's amazing what we will miss when we're disobedient. It's amazing what we will miss if we won't yield our heart to the Lord. I just leave that alone. That was free. I just threw that in there. So it was during that venture where I really got my hands on. I learned all kind of stuff from carpentry to electricity to plumbing, and so anyway, did all that. It wasn't until we were starting our venture to open up Tasty's Restaurant, 539 Union Street, Springfield, Massachusetts. I tell no lies. You can fact check me. Tasty's Restaurant. My folks from the field already know what it is, man. It was the bomb. Okay, we came in second to none. Some of the best food in Massachusetts and beyond. Jamaican food. It was on point. So it was during that venture, and we had to do a complete remodel of the building inside, and I'd never done a restaurant before. My wife, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, they were handling all the stove work, all the cooking and everything like that, of course. But what happened was I had an individual who I considered to be an OG from the church world. Okay. Now, again, you have OGs in every walk and all walks of life. Okay. And this OG, and we'll talk about the different definitions of OG in a minute. So stick with me. Okay. This OG says to me, it'll never work. You got too many irons in the fire. It'll never work. Crushed me as a young man because I looked up to him so dearly. I can't even begin to articulate how much I looked up to this guy. Okay. So as an older person, you almost automatically are allowed the space in one's mind to be an OG just because of age. I think it was it Jimmy? No, yeah, it was Jimmy. He says OG is earned and comes with age. Okay. Now we want to come back to that in a little bit. OG is earned and it comes with age. But not everybody does right by the status that they now walk in. Okay, whether it be OG, just period. Okay, that applies across the board. All right. So this is what he tells me, and it crushed me. Somebody says, "Jack of all trades, master of none." I heard that several times as a young man growing up because I had my hands in so many things, right? One day I'm doing this, the next day I'm doing that. And so jack of all trades, master of none. And so it began to resonate, not just in my mind, but in my spirit. And true story, I'm on the couch this morning. And so what happened was every time I got ready to do another venture, or every time I got an opportunity to do another venture, because the Lord was blessing, I would second guess myself. Well, maybe I'm doing too much. Maybe I do got too many irons in the fire. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe that, and literally things begin to go downhill for me entrepreneurially. When I tell you God placed a blessing in my hands, he placed a blessing in my hands. And you've got to be careful because not everybody can handle the blessing that's on your life. And because they can't see beyond the front porch, they will say things that will deter you and discourage you. And if you're not careful, may even stop you. Some people are OGs, but I'm going to get ahead of myself. That's okay. Those OGs are the OGs that I define as old and goofy. Well, we'll get back to that. I got ahead of myself, but we'll get back to that in a moment. And so that's what happened, man. And it affected me. It affected my business ventures. And I never forget, I then came across the full saying, and it had been years after that I heard the full definition or the full saying of jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than master of one. Jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than master of one. And I believe that's the way it goes. But in other words, I would rather be able to do a whole lot of things good instead of mastering one thing. And some may or may not agree with that. But when I heard the full definition or the full saying of that phrase, it did liberate me to an extent. And see, that's why, you say, I don't care what people say. I'm not going to say that's a lie, but I will say a lot of times people who say that are fighting against what people say, because words have power. And they say, when we were kids, they say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. That's not true. Words hurt. That's why some folks you just don't need to enter into conversations with, because their words can be so weighty and so hurtful and so detrimental. So some conversations, my dear brothers and sisters, don't even engage in. Yeah, because ain't nothing good coming out of it. The guidance counselor told my wife as a kid in school she would not be able to become an RN, but almost 30 years later, she's still going strong. No one can stop you with God on your side. Ladies and gentlemen, that deserves a round of applause. Yeah. The things that people say to you, it reflects them more than it does you. Who are you to tell somebody that they can never do such and such, that they can't do this and they can't do that? Just because you're too small-minded to grasp it and to persevere and to, figure it out, doesn't mean that the next one can't. We ought to encourage people more, folks. That's all I'm trying to say. So let's talk about this OG stuff so I can get out your way. If you are offended by anything said here on the Retro Philosophy Show, I'm praying for you. Because to know me is to love me. If you know me, then you know that's not my stilo. That's not my get down. That's not my MO. That's not how we do things over here. I am one who rocks with and for Lottie Dottie. Lottie Dottie is a fictitious individual, but ever so real. She represents those who have been overlooked, mistreated, mishandled, undervalued, lied to, lied on, pushed aside, forgotten, so on and so forth. And so with that being said and done, I would be the last person to intentionally set out to offend someone. Now, if something that I say offends you, then you took offense. Yeah. If something that I say, then this is not just me. If something is said and you are offended by it, then you took that offense. Because not everything that's offensive has to offend. Now, you may not like the truth of what's being spoken or what's being said. But just because you don't like the truth doesn't mean the truth was spoken to hurt you. You might have been hurt by it, but that ain't got nothing to do with the one who spoke it. Are you following me? Now, I'm not talking about those people who are malicious with words. I'm not talking about that situation. But sometimes we take offense because we operate under the spirit of offense. We've talked about that before, so we'll go ahead and move on. Is it okay if we move on, folks? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie. I grew up in a neighborhood where there were OGs. I grew up in a neighborhood where, you couldn't just do any and everything. Well, you could, but not without consequence, not without repercussions. Okay, especially if it was something that broke the rules, and I hate to say rules, but anything you are a part of is going to have some kind of rules, whether spoken or unspoken. Okay, there are guidelines, there are ways to do things. There's protocol. I don't know how you want to define it and how you want to articulate it, but there will always be a way that we must conduct ourselves in certain circles, et cetera, whether it be work. And that's what kills me. I shouldn't say kill me, but that's what gets me. We're not to judge others, but we must look in the mirror and judge ourselves only. Keep pressing forward. That part right there, Brother Meso. You go to work and you obey all the rules. They tell you to be there at 8 o'clock. You there at 7:45. They tell you a 30-minute lunch, you taking a 25-minute lunch break. They tell you can't wear this, you ain't wearing that. You follow all the rules, but then you get home and you don't want to follow no rules. You just I don't get it. Man. So let me just move on. So there were OGs when I was growing up. And I began to understand things very quickly, and grateful that I did, because there's a method to the madness sometimes. You may be familiar with these kind of neighborhoods. There were neighborhoods that policed themselves. If somebody did something that was, stupid or something crazy, we didn't always call the police. Usually it was one of the older mothers of the neighborhood or one of the old school, but the folks who were closely, I don't really want to say attached, but we didn't call the police. What's going on, K Solo? Ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie. Let's make some noise for the one and only K Solo, the rider, in the building on this morning. The neighborhoods police themselves. And usually it was the OGs. Word got back to OG that little so-and-so or so-and-so did such and such and such and such. It would be handled, and whether the OG did it himself directly or whether he assigned or delegated, but somehow or another, it would be dealt with. It would be handled. Now, those OGs that I'm referring to, many of you guys may call, I'll just talk about me. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, okay? So let me go ahead and do this, and we'll hop right on into this thing here. Bada boom, bada bang. Let's see here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm going to set up my scene, and then we're going to go ahead and hop on into this OGs, and OGs. How about that? Is that all right, folks? Ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie, keep it locked and don't you dare touch that dial. Ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie, it's your boy Reall with you on today. Y'all like my little monkey friend? They say one monkey don't stop the show. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hop into this. So we're talking about OGs on today, ladies and gentlemen. OGs, and old G's, okay? Which one are you? Help me in these definitions, because I could be wrong. I was wrong once before, thought I was wrong, turned out I was right. Go figure, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further, Craig Farmer's in the building. Good morning, sir. How are you doing? Let's make some noise for Craig Farmer in the building. So I know we got at least 2-3 OGs on the live on this morning, so you guys can help me with these definitions. So if I'm wrong somewhere, straighten me out, okay? And also, let's do this. We've got to realize, ladies and gentlemen, that there are things that I call, as you can see here, teachable moments. Okay, teachable moments. And and this is a teachable moment right here. Goodness gracious, let me see here. All right, well, we'll do this here. We're talking about OGs, ladies and gentlemen, and there are several different kind. Okay, several different kind. Do this, and let's see if this is gonna help me out any better. All right, that's a little bit better. Okay, that's what we need. We need some footage, right? So let's go ahead and hop right on into this thing, man. OGs. Okay. Now, when I was coming up, when we heard the term OGs, we usually thought original gangster, right? Am I wrong? Anybody else? Original gangster. So let's talk about that real quick. Original gangsters, when I was coming up, they were the ones that were there from the beginning. They started it. They pioneered it. And these were the gentlemen who would set it off. I'm not saying that they had the best, reputation. As a matter of fact, some people didn't want to see the OGs come in, because usually when you saw the OGs come in, there were consequences. They were usually coming to enforce some rules and set some things straight. And they didn't really care. They were, and in many regards, they were considered to be heartless. Right now, a couple OGs come to my mind from my childhood growing up who would handle business in a heartbeat. But at the same time, they were kind, and they were, I know this might sound like an oxymoron, but they were gentle. It all depended on where you met them at. It all depended on your behavior that would pull out certain behavior in them. They weren't always the loudest. Sometimes they were the more quiet ones. But when it came down to business, they would handle business. These were the original gangsters. They didn't care about the law. They didn't care about they didn't care about their rules. And when I say there, I'm talking about, but they made sure they enforced their rules, because it was what it was. They were usually created out of frustration, if you will, sick and tired of being sick and tired, and had enough, and were let down by the system, if you will. The system never did what it was supposed to do, or what they said they would do, et cetera, et cetera. And so they got to the point where they said, you know what? We're going to do it for ourselves, and we're going to do it our way. And again, this is my definition. These were the old original gangsters. And they fought for their territory. They fought for their cause. They fought for whatever they wanted to fight for. The OGs, original gangsters. Okay. And you'll see this again, whether you're on the motorcycle set, whether you're in the, church scene, we still had some original gangsters. They wasn't going to take the nonsense. They were going to stand up for God, and they want to do what they had to do. They went against the grain. Who was an OG? Jesus. He came into this world. He said, I didn't come to do away with the law, but I came to fulfill the law. And he went against every grain that there was as it related to religious practices and so on and so forth. Of course, he didn't resort to violence per se, but original gangsters. They were there. They were the ones who started it. They pioneered it, and was there from the very beginning. All right. Those, ladies and gentlemen, are some real deal OGs. Okay. And then we move on to another set of OGs. Okay. OGs. Okay. You say, well, retro, it's the same thing. OG and OG. Yeah, it is. But as you can see, there's a period between the O and the G, right? Okay. You might not think it means anything, but it does. These OGs, they had a method to the madness. Let's talk about it. Boof. There we go. They offered guidance. OG to offer guidance. Now, the original gangsters didn't really offer much guidance, because they themselves, they were pioneering a certain path, a movement, so they didn't really offer guidance, because they themselves were figuring it out, and they did this, and it didn't yield what they wanted. So, okay, well, we do something else. But they didn't turn around from what they were doing just because of the bad results that transpired. However, the OGs, the ones who offer guidance, they too was there from the beginning. And some of them were some of the original gangsters, right? But when you know better, you do better. And so some of the original gangsters made a shift to OGs, those who offer guidance. I can remember certain OGs in my neighborhood, right? And, when you're young and you see these OGs doing things, you're like, man, I want to be like so-and-so. And, I want to do this and I want to do that. It is what it is, right, wrong, or indifferent. But those OGs that offer guidance, man, they would see the potential that you had as a young person. They would see the potential you had, and they would say, yo, what you doing over here, man? God forbid, you come from a decent family and know this ain't what you got to do. They would run you away. I remember the OGs, us little kids, we couldn't hang around over in certain parts of the neighborhood. Nah. They would, because they were doing stuff that they knew would yield bad results if it went that way. If you're following me, and so they wouldn't let us hang around there. They would shoo us away, as they should have. So they offered guidance. Okay, they took on a perspective instead of setting it off. They understood. They found out the importance of setting it up. They did what they had to do so we wouldn't have to do what they had to do. Y'all ain't hear me. But I'm preaching anyway. And so though they offer guidance. Now the OGs, original gangsters, and the OGs that offer guidance, they didn't necessarily have a problem with each other. Sometimes it was the OG that offered guidance that was try to be a voice of reason to the original gangsters, because not everything needs to be handled with a 9mm, a Tech 9, and an Uzi. I'm just saying, and we are not at the same place here in 2025 that our OGs were back in the depending on your your area, your decade, might have been the 60s for some of y'all, might have been the 70s, might have been the 80s, but things have changed. So what I see a lot of times is we become enamored by what a certain person or people did during a certain time or era. And we never realize that we're supposed to evolve. I said something to someone the other day, and I referenced Martin Luther King. I said, Martin Luther King had a dream, but we've got to have a vision. Y'all got to hear me good. If I become enamored with the dream that Martin Luther King Jr. had, I will continue to dream, but never have a vision so that the dream can come to pass. Okay, let me move on. So original gangsters, then those who kind of took it up another notch and said, you know what, we ain't got to be so violent. We can still protect our neighborhoods. We can still protect our people. We can still stand firm on what we believe. We can still demand justice. We can still demand, equality, et cetera, et cetera. But we can kind of evolve a little bit. And even though I'm doing something bad, okay, let me give you a case in point. There were some kids in the neighborhood who were talented in sports or whatever the case may be, but their family didn't have the means to pay for their registration or this, that, or the other. And so the OGs was out there getting that money. We're just going to be real about it. They was out there getting that money. And they would sponsor these kids. Yeah, they would sponsor kids, and they would do things like that. As a matter of fact, WIC, that's how WIC started, in essence, because we are offering guidance. We are going to make sure we do what we got to do so they can have what they need, so they won't have to do what we out here doing. Okay, all right, let me move on. So you have those who offer guidance. Look, young blood, you keep on going down that direction, man. You ain't gonna get nowhere but such and such. Ask me how I know. I never forget, I was at a point, and there was an OG who he pulled me aside, okay, and he began to question me, man. What you doing, man? Why you doing that? And I'm just young and dumb is what I was, young and dumb, and so he said, yo, I want you to talk to somebody. I want you to talk to my homie, right? And so I've talked about this before. I'm gonna hit it and I'm gonna quit it. So he had enough to get my attention, but not so much enough to change my direction. Let me tell you this. You've got to understand that just because you can get their attention doesn't mean you can change their direction. And that's okay. But if you know someone that can change their direction, then you should introduce them to that person. So he introduces me to another dude who had a different track record, a different resume, a different body of work, if you will. And I'm like, whoa, you got my attention, bro. And he sits me down. He talks to me. He tells me his story in depth. He pointed out some pitfalls, and I'm listening now. I'm all ears. And then he does the ultimate, yo. He put a book in my hand. I'll never forget it. It's almost bringing me to tears right now. This was an OG who had, matter of fact, he had just not too long gotten out from serving a bid, and here I am, probably 16 years old, somewhere thereabouts. Very mature 16, might I add. When I was 16, when I was 15. Anyway, I'll leave it alone. He places a book in my hands. And the name of the book, the author was Nathan McCall. And the name of the book was Makes Me Wanna Holler. Makes Me Wanna Holler. Yo, that book shattered some things in my life, folks. Allowing me to break forth and break free from some things. My point is, he was able to offer me guidance. He was connected enough to things, but yet still far enough removed from things. See, you can't offer guidance to somebody when you're still entangled. So which one you gonna figure out which one you gonna be before you go try to offer guidance to somebody, because what we see is we see a hypocrite. What we see is we see somebody who don't even know what they talking about. They sound good, but there's, bruh, you know. And so this gentleman here, man, it was one of the greatest introductions in terms of me being introduced to somebody, especially at that time in my life. He offered me guidance. Okay. Now, I didn't change the next day or the next week or even the next year. But it was that encounter that really allowed me access to certain ways of thinking, so that I could embrace the change that would eventually come. All right. So OGs, and then you have OGs. All right. You understand the importance of not setting it off, but setting it up. Sometimes we got to teach people it's not always about the war. It's not always about the fight. Okay. And so let me move on so I can get out your way. I'm sure you got something to do today, very more important than just hearing me chit chat and run off at the mouth. Right? Is that all right? Is that all right? Okay. All right. So they offered guidance. Now let's talk about the OGs. This one, it gets interesting. These next two are pretty interesting, okay? And some of you guys are probably going to feel some kind of way, but, it is what it is, and it's going to be what it's going to be, okay? So, OG, they are the ones who were there, but not necessarily from the beginning, okay? They hung around, but they didn't offer much, if any, contribution at all to the culture, to the movement, to the cause, or to the purpose. Okay. They name drop more than they drop knowledge. Okay. These are the OGs. They know everybody, but nobody knows them. These are the ones who they went through the era. They were there. But before they knew it, it was, they was old and ancient, and I shouldn't say old and ancient, but, and now just because they are in a certain age bracket, they, consider themselves to be an OG. They don't offer any guidance. They were not the originators. They didn't even, when it was going on, they didn't even realize it was going on until it was done. They know who was doing it. They know who the shakers and bakers are, but they're not amongst that number, if you understand what I'm saying. They're just like, oh, gee, well, like, gee whiz, okay, yeah. And again, they name drop, but they can't drop any knowledge. OG. Okay, they just made it through, and it just, before you know it, every storm runs out of rain sooner or later, and they just woke up one day and they was 60, 70 years old, and or maybe even a little younger, 50, 60, 70, and now they want to act like they're an OG because they knew who the OGs were. They knew who they were, but they didn't know them. They name drop, but they can't drop any knowledge. They're not offering any guidance at all. They're just oh gee, here he come again, Anyway, okay. And then last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, we have the ultimate OG. Okay, we have the ultimate OG. All right, the ultimate OG is just that, old. And you know what else they are? They're old and goofy. Yeah, the old G's. They're old and goofy. They missed the boat or couldn't make the cut. Yeah. They you know, when they were in their prime, you know, they couldn't make it then. You know, they were there, but they couldn't get in. And so now they, you know, again, they, you know, 50, 60, 70 years old, and now they want to act like they're somebody who they never was and never could be, and they're just old and goofy, you know. You often hear people joke about, you know, they go get a motorcycle, you know, they go and, you know, get the little starter pack, you know, you get your little chain and your, you know, a few patches and things like that, and now you're trying to be something that you never was. Let me say this: an OG is not someone who just wakes up and starts doing it, but an OG is somebody who has lived it, done it, never stopped doing it. Now, they may have evolved. They may have started out as an original gangster. You know, they were setting it off, but then they evolve and they realize that there's a better way of doing this thing. And if I want, you know, to really benefit my neighborhood or really benefit the culture that I'm a part of, then I got to stop making the block hot. Instead of setting it off all the time, how about I set some things up so that my nephew and my son and my grandchildren, come on somebody, can walk in peace without having to look over their heads. I don't know if you know what it feels like to have to take several different routes home every night before you can, you know, to make sure nobody's following you and trailing you. And it's all because of the life that you live. It's because of the choices that you made that you now have to, you know, boy, you used to have several, you know, some of y'all can just go home the same way every single night. God bless you. But there was a time where you couldn't just go straight home. You know, it was a process to go home because you didn't want nobody to follow you and find out where you live, you know, because they'd come and, you know, and so, but you don't want your kids to live that way. So you got to get to a point where, because otherwise, you know, your children, your nephew, you know, those coming after you may suffer the consequences on your behalf. So you begin to evolve. You begin to try to right some wrongs, and you realize that it's not always about setting it off, but setting it up. You know, you begin to do things so that, you know, when it's your son's time to, you know, reign or to, you know, do whatever he's going to do, he doesn't have to look over his shoulder because of what you did, you know. And so again, an OG is not somebody who just wakes up, you know, 50, 60 years old and, you know, puffs their chest out because they're the same age as the original gangster and the one who offers guidance. And no, bro, you know, they got a saying, real recognize real. Yeah, real recognize real. You can't fake that stuff, man. It's got to be real. So anyway, those are my 1, 2, 3, 4 perspectives of what an OG is. And the only two that really get respect, we tolerate the OGs. We don't want nothing to do with the old G's, but the OGs and the OGs, those are the ones that gets the respect. You know, you don't always respect what the original gangsters did. You don't always, you know, respect their method or their methodology, but you understand it. You know, it was that era, it was that time, and if truth be told, they did the best they could with what they had, and you know, that's the way things was going. It's the OGs, the ones who offer guidance, who were the ones who really begin to, you know, all right. If you want to think, I kind of hate to say this because, you know, I know some may or may not agree, but one who comes to mind is Snoop, right? Snoop Dogg. You know, he was all about that gangster life, and I'm probably gonna get myself in a little bit of a hot spot here, but I think that this whole original gangster stuff really, it's seated in the West Coast, and that's my opinion. Now, I'm not saying you didn't have no gangsters in the North and in the South and things like that, but the West Coast just was on a whole different level when it comes to, you know, that gangster stuff. But so we look at somebody like Snoop, who was seated in that, who was embedded in that. But then he became an OG and began to offer guidance. You notice he started doing the football league and things like that, and he caught slack for it, because the further you get away from what you started out doing, people want to say all kind of things about you. But you got to do what you got to do, man. Nobody wants to live a life where your head got to stay on a swivel 24/7. Now, I still don't like to sit down at a restaurant with my back to the door. I mean, it's just habit. I want to be able to have a vantage point where I can see something if it were to come, even if it ain't coming for me. But again, man, you get to a point where, you want to shift things a little bit in life. And so you've got to change. So anyway, all this stemmed off of the thought that I had this morning. When you hear OG, who comes to mind? Who are your top 3, top 5 OGs in whatever area of life you are in, and why? Some of us hold people as one thing, and they have no right to really be there. They didn't really do anything to really deserve that space, if you will. But again, everybody's got to make those choices for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie, it's your boy Retro with you on this morning. Grateful for another day, as they would say, in the land of the living. And I don't know how I am seen by some. And right now, what's most important is how God sees me. So as a viewer said earlier this morning in the show, Jimmy, he says he likes the way I put my spin on motorcycling and God. And I want to say to all of us that are listening, all of us that are under the sound of my voice this morning, include God in your list of those you feel necessary to impress. Yeah. Because otherwise you can impress people and displease God. And last time I checked, man didn't have a hell for you to shun, nor a heaven for you to enter. Yeah. So make sure in the things that you're doing in life, you are, number one, pleasing unto God. Ride your motorcycle, build your business, grow your church, do whatever it is that you do. But don't forget that you have a God who sits high and looks low. He sees and he knows everything that you're doing. A thought just came to mind. I think I'll add it because I think it applies. I just heard my mama say, ain't no fool like an old fool. My mama used to say all kind of stuff. And I'm sure you probably heard it too. Ain't no fool like an old fool. And true story, you scrolling through the book, Facebook, or you scrolling through the Instagram, or whatever it is, or whatever social media that you frequent. And you're looking at these posts and you're looking at these people at events, and they're getting older and older and older. They certainly ain't getting no younger. And sometimes you wonder, when do people ever choose to grow up? Sometimes it is too late. Sometimes on some things you missed the boat. There are some things that I wanted to do in my teens, and I wasn't able to do it. I can't do it now. I'll be 50 years old in a couple months. And there are some things that it has a time limit on it. Yeah. See, what happens is a lot of times people, they finally get to an age where they got enough money and they got enough free time to do some things. But bro, it's too late, man. You look real foolish out there doing that now. All your life you was one way, and now you finally got a little time and a little piece of money. And now just because you can buy it and just because you got it don't mean that, it's a good look on you. I'm saying, for the MC culture, I think it blossomed after the Vietnam War, returned home and cats felt rebellious, and started pounding these twos. OGs, much love, Retro, keep pushing. Thank you, K Solo, a man who knows a whole lot more as it pertains to the MC culture. And I don't intend to portray myself as a as a guru of any source as it pertains to that. And so thank you for that insight there, K Solo. And so it's a lot of it stemmed from that era, as I perceived, and so would you agree that there are different levels of OG status? Trying to flex in the wrong area can invalidate your OG status. Okay, I can definitely understand that. Trying to flex in the wrong area can invalidate your OG status. So if you are an OG in one area, doesn't mean you're an OG in all areas. Case in point, there were certain OGs in your hometown, and then they go on vacation. You ain't no OG out there, so you got to just, don't be out there where you shouldn't be trying to flex to where you shouldn't be flexing. True story indeed. And you'll find out real quick. You'll find out real quick where your perimeters are. However, I do believe that there are some things that are truth irregardless. And I think there's truth irregardless when it comes to some things. And when it comes to people, they'll take it from you, but they won't take it from them. And so, again, going back to the example that I used with gentleman's name was Dennis. He sat me down because he saw some things, and but then he put me on to somebody else who had more influence. I don't know if I want to say more right, because Dennis had every right to say what he said, and because he saw what he saw. But the other gentleman was a whole lot more effective. So appreciate the input, ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie. It's your boy Reall on this morning. Are you an OG? I think that it's a term that is overused, and I don't think everybody should be able to just jump up and take the status of OG, because it diminishes the importance of what the OGs really did and who OGs really are. So nowadays, everybody's two things I see. Nowadays, everybody's an OG and everybody's a ground pounder. I don't think 50 years old is you ain't old enough to be an OG. You gotta have a little bit more tenure. You gotta have a little bit more time underneath your belt before you can try to say that you're. Same thing in the church. You see 20-year-old bishops. Boy, you too young. Go sit down somewhere. You ain't nobody's bishop. You picked up the title, but you barely got enough experience to be talking about you somebody's bishop. And so there are some things where, age is very necessary before you can claim, and you shouldn't claim it. Number one, it should be placed on you. So there's age, and then there's experience, and then there's the ability to discern. So let's just say you got the experience and you got the age, but what if you don't have the wherewithal to discern? Case in point, as I was saying earlier, there were some OGs who situations will be handled. The two people can do the same thing, the same exact thing, but they will be handled differently, because you've got to have the ability to discern. Some people do what you did intentionally, despitefully, and disrespectfully, whereas you did it out of ignorance. You didn't know. You did the same thing they did, but it's not going to be handled the same way. And an OG has the ability to discern. So not every situation is handled the same way, and so just because you got the age and just because you've got the experience, you still messy. You still stirring up stuff, and you still, you're not an OG. You might be an OG, but you might be the latter one, the old and goofy one. Because, when you get to be a certain age, you should be seeking to fix things more than you do to stir things up. You 60 some years old and you still trying to flex your muscles, bro. Your muscles are disintegrating. You ain't got no more muscle, and that's understandable. So, don't be out there trying to flex. These young folk okay. Ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie. It's your boy Reall. I want to thank you for pressing play and being part of the Retro Philosophy Show on today. Let's see here. Will we be live tomorrow? Who knows? my schedule has gone out the window. I got so much going on, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. There we go. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But one thing I will do, one thing I have figured out is that every day is a good day, because this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. We'll talk to you guys real soon, man. If you have not already registered for Mission 448, we want to encourage you to do so. Go ahead and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, everybody, including Lottie Dottie, it's your boy Retro, let you know that registration for Mission 448 is open. You can register today and ride the four corners of your state or multiple states. Who's going to be the first to collect the four corners of each of the lower 48 states? Hashtag Who's Got Next. Register today and ride the four corners of your state.
Everybody say, how I